Have you ever bought a self-help book, signed up for a course, or joined a workshop and felt super excited, thrilled actually, thinking this is it. This is going to be the thing that changes everything. But weeks later, or maybe even months later, you're right back to where you started. Maybe even feeling worse because now you have a stack of unused books, courses you didn't open up or finish, and zero results of what you really wanted. You're not alone. In fact, there's a hidden reason why most self-help doesn't actually get you the help that you want. And it has nothing to do with the books, the programs, or even the teacher. It's something deeper, something that quietly is sabotaging your progress, whether you realize it or not. In this video, I'm going to break down exactly why self-help often fails, and more importantly, what you can do to finally make it work for you. Because the problem isn't that you're not capable of change. It's that no one taught you how to bridge the gap between learning and doing. Let's fix that today. Buying self-help material feels good. Signing up for a course, buying a new book to transform your life, building your confidence, or increasing your motivation, those all feel amazing. And you're on your way to being your best version of yourself. But are you? Here's the truth. That feeling, it's a trick. It's tricking your mind and it's playing a trick on you. And what it's called is the premature sense of accomplishment. Just the act of buying a new book or signing up for a course triggers a dopamine hit, making you feel like you've already made progress, even though nothing has actually changed. Now, what's going on here? We know that information has power, but information is only potential power. You have to act on that. A big key is that learning feels productive, but it's actually passive instead of being active. Because the key here is having active participation versus passive learning. If you're doing active participation, you're actually engaging in what you're learning, then that's going to make a huge difference versus if you're just absorbing it and learning it, but you're not really becoming that. You're not embodying that. Now, I've done this myself. I've learned things, I've studied things, I've read lots of books, taken lots of courses, work with coaches and things like that. And there's a huge difference from the intellectual knowledge versus actually applying it. And I can tell you that when I have applied it, when I've had it become part of me, that's been a major game changer. One example of that was I read a book where the author talked about or versus and. And what he said is, too many of us limit ourselves with the word or. We think, oh, we can have this or we can have that. And he said, I challenge you to change this. Whenever you want to put or in there, put the word and in there. And for me, I started implementing that. I started realizing how often I was thinking I had this choice, this dichotomy, where I could either do this way or this way. And when I started putting in the word and, I started opening up possibilities like, how could I do that? How could I get this and that? And it made a huge difference for me. But it wasn't because it was a theoretical understanding. It was because I took that in, I absorbed it, I became it. And then when I saw myself acting, I was like, am I really doing this? Am I using this skill? Because it really hit home to me how often I would think in terms of or. And he said, like, if you want to have abundance and you want to have your life expanding, you want to have and in there and have your brain, your subconscious, come up with ways that you actually could implement that and have it come about versus or just having it just being, oh, well, that's what it is, and I'm kind of stuck with that. So that's a real powerful thing there is, are you taking what you're learning and are you applying it? Or is it just kind of coming in, oh yeah, that was interesting, I got that, and it's going right out the window? I can also tell you, as a basketball coach, I would tell players about free throws. And everyone knows about free throws, right? This isn't a big surprise in the game of basketball. People shoot free throws all the time, from grade school all the way up to the pros. But the thing that's interesting is when you look at the stats, and when I was coaching a few years ago, and I'm sure it's pretty similar to this right now, the free throw shooting percentage in high school was around 68%. Now, if you shoot a granny shot, so you're using two hands, you're kind of shooting it like a granny, like this, versus the normal way everyone shoots with the one-handed, your percentage could go way up. And you would look at people like Rick Barry, who played in the NBA and had a super high percentage, show them like, okay, this is way more effective. You could get 90%, 95%. You could have a much higher percentage shooting the granny shot. Now the students and players, they would be like, oh, I get that. I understand that. That's a better way to do it. But they wouldn't actually implement it. And there's always some kind of reason why you don't implement it. In this case, for them, they didn't think they'd look cool. They feel like they look kind of dorky shooting a shot like that. And so if you think about a team, if they shoot 20 free throws a game, and if you're at 68%, that's going to be less than 14 shots you're going to make out of 20 free throws. If you're shooting 90% or more, you're going to make 18 or maybe even 19 of those free throws. So that's 4 or 5 points difference. And most games are decided by a few points. So in this right here, it's not that they don't know it, but they had a reason why they decided not to do that. And you have to be ready to apply this, because if you're not, it's like you're not at the level to apply it. So when you're thinking about self-help and all the stuff you do, think about, what do I already know, and am I applying it or not? Because most of us already know how to do things. Like there's so many people buy diet books every year. So many people get on exercise programs. We know you need to be more active, you need to take less calories in. There's some real basic things we all know. But do we actually apply that, or do we ignore it? Or do we buy a new diet book? That type of thing. And when I looked up the information on this, I was shocked at the numbers, how much money people spend on self-help and personal development. I knew it was a big industry, but I didn't realize quite how big it was. Like in 2024, there was 50 billion, with a B, 50 billion spent on self-help. Now that is overcoming self-doubt, confidence, being stressed, procrastination, relationships, life purpose, all those types of things. So $50 billion people spent on self-help. Now, did most people get the results that they wanted? No, they didn't. Because, again, information is only potential power. It's when you apply it that you get the actual benefit of it and implementing it. In other videos, I've talked about the knowing-doing gap, and this applies here. If you know something, but you don't do it, there's a real disconnect. If you're doing something, but you don't know how you're doing it, you don't know the right way to do it, it's not very effective. So you got to know and do. And the more you know, the better that you do it. It's going to be more effective, more efficient. So I want to talk to you about a 3-part self-mastery readiness framework. And what this is trying to help you have a system, a little checklist here, and you can see, am I actually ready to buy a new course, to get a new book, to do something like this, or do I need to hold off until I'm ready? So let's go through this. Number 1 is mental readiness. Do I believe I can improve with effort? If you don't believe you can improve with the work that you do, it's really meaningless to try to do it. It's actually irrational and insane if you think you can't improve, but you work on trying to improve. So you have to believe that I can improve. And if you're not at that point, if you're like, for whatever reason, you're like, I don't think I can actually improve. I think I could put the effort in, but I don't believe I can do it. Like me, when I work with students, some of them have lots of issues with math, and they do not believe they can become better at math, algebra, or whatever it might be. And so for them, that belief, it doesn't matter if it's true or not, but that belief means they're not ready to grow and improve and get that. Am I open to new perspectives, even if they challenge me? Are you willing to be wrong? Can you admit that, okay, maybe I might be wrong? Are you willing to look at different angles of this and see, what am I missing? Is this something where I can grow and improve, or am I really resistant to new ideas? Do I take responsibility for my results instead of blaming external factors? One of the easiest things to do is to blame others. I know myself, I catch myself sometimes because I'm like, oh boy, it's this person, it's that. It's so easy to do, especially when people around you are doing that. And believe me, it's all over the place. So if you have to realize that I have to take control of this and I have to take responsibility for my results. I know one time I was in a course and the guy said, everything that happens to you is your fault. And I thought, man, that guy's like really pushing it. And he said, even if you live in Florida and a hurricane hits you, it's your fault. And the point of him making this is that you chose to live in Florida, or you chose to live in a place where earthquakes could happen. You chose to live in a place where tornadoes would happen. You made a choice. And if you didn't like that, you could move. And the idea was that it was empowering you, that it's better to realize, like, I do have control, I do have power over my life, versus feeling like you're a victim and things are happening to you rather than they're happening for you. Am I willing to persist through discomfort instead of quitting when things get tough? Here, one of the biggest things is your comfort zone. And if you stay within your comfort zone and you don't expand and go beyond it, you'll feel comfortable, you'll feel safe, you'll feel okay. But you'll never grow, you'll never have the results that you really want. So you have to go beyond your comfort zone. And that's going to feel uncomfortable, quite honestly. Sometimes the most difficult thing is to unlearn something. And I found when I work with people, that is one of the hardest things. Because we've learned things, and then to try to unlearn them is really hard. Just imagine if you found out today that your name was not your name. You had a different name. How hard would it be for you to fully embrace that, to get rid of the name that you have and then take on another name? It would probably be a lot of resistance. If you heard your old name called, you'd still turn your head and look because it would just be so natural for you. You would think that's who you are and that's normal. So unlearning is super difficult, super challenging, and most people really struggle with unlearning your limiting beliefs. Instead of holding on to your limiting belief, can you let go? Can you unlearn that thing that was not helping you? What about your past failures? Can you let go of those? Or are you just holding on to them? Because we all have unhealthy patterns. Whatever the pattern might be. It could be food, it could be the way you're thinking, it could be your behaviors. There's different things that we have with patterns. And you'll notice certain people, certain times of the year, they're more excited. They're more excited in summer. They're more depressed during winter, whatever it might be. But there's patterns going on. Is there a way you can break or change your pattern? Could you take a vacation in the winter? Could you do something different where you're being in the sun or visiting people? But again, you have to unlearn these things, because if you stay in the pattern that you're in, you're just going to keep getting more of that. But if you can shake that pattern and change it up, it's a big thing. And I know for a lot of times with students or players, like if they've learned to shoot a basket a weird way, let's say they learn to shoot like with two hands going this way instead of one hand, it's really difficult to get them to change. Or if they're used to shooting with their elbow out wide or some weird thing, it's hard to change that. It's much easier to take someone who's never played basketball at all and then teach them, okay, this is how we hold the ball, this is how we pass it, this is how we shoot it, because you don't have to unlearn all that stuff. So for yourself, one thing that might be getting in your way of the success that you want in these courses and the different things is, do I have a lot of things that I'm holding on to that I'd be so much better served if I could unlearn them and let them go? Hey, the second is the application readiness. Do I take action on things I learn, even in small ways? Am I able to set small, clear goals and follow through? Do I track my progress and adjust when needed? Can I reflect on what's working and what's not instead of just moving on to the next thing? One of the most amazing stories I read was a lady who took over her husband's business when he passed away. And everyone thought this lady was just going to sell the business or kind of be a silent partner. They thought she wasn't going to take very much of an active role because she was like in her 70s at this point when her husband passed away. And instead, she went around to all the different places because it was a multi-millionaire business. It was very successful. And she went around to all the different locations of this business and asked, what's working? What's not working? Those simple questions there. What's working? And she would ask people, what's working? And they would say, oh, this is doing great. Or, all this. What's not working? Okay. And then her simple answer was, let's do more of what's working and less of what's not working. And as simple and basic as that sounds, if we apply that to our lives, that makes a huge difference. I know for me, I'm constantly thinking about that. Like, what am I doing that's working? When I make a video, for example, is this working? Is it having the impact I want it to have? Or are people kind of confused? Are they like not getting it? Are they not following through? What's the answer to that? So I'm asking myself in my personal life, is what I'm doing working? I'll tell you this, like when I went to the dentist last, they said that my gums in my mouth, instead of receding, they had actually expanded. And when I got my glasses at my last eye exam, instead of my eyes getting worse, they got better. So I had to get a new prescription, but it was less strength. So those were things telling me, hey, some of these things I'm doing, some of the things like with the flossing and the water pick and the different things like that, those are making a difference. And if I'm looking at things and I'm asking myself constantly, like, am I making this more effective, more efficient? Is it working better? What's not working? How can I do less of that? And what I found is you keep doing that. And at first, you see like big, massive changes you can do. Okay, because you're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm doing this or that. Why do I keep doing that? It's not very effective. And then over time, what you notice is you're just doing more minor refinements, but they're still significant. Okay, third is the identity readiness. Do I intentionally practice new habits until they feel natural? In the 1960s, Dr. Maxwell Maltz wrote a book called Cybernetics, and he did a lot of other things. One of the things he talked about, though, was that you needed 21 days to establish a habit. And somehow that became the standard bearer that it only takes 21 days or 3 weeks to establish a habit. But they looked in 2009 and they did this extensive study, and what they found is that the habits that you have, if you're trying to change a habit, it could take up to 254 days. So close to a year to change a habit. And the more complex, the more detailed, the more of a significant shift it was for you, the longer it would take. But somehow we got it in our head that it should take 21 days. When really, on average, it's 66 days. So if you want to change a habit, on average, it's going to take 66 days. And that's not like doing it one day and then taking a few days off and doing it again. That's like 66 days in a row. Because to change this, you have to really embrace it. You can't just doing it off and on. Otherwise, you're not really going to change who you are. So for you, do you intentionally practice these new habits? Do you do it long enough and consistently enough so that it becomes who you are? Because otherwise, again, this whole video here is applying what you know, taking it and having it become part of you. And if you're doing a habit for 3 weeks and you think, oh, it just takes 21 days. Well, yeah, maybe it takes 21 days for something easy and minor like drinking a glass of water every day. Maybe you could add one more glass of water and in 21 days you could do that. But if you're trying to do something more complex, like shift your identity from being doubtful to being confident, it's probably not going to take 21 days. It's probably going to be higher in the 254 days. And then the other thing that's a big impact on this is, are you trying to go it alone, which you can do, or do you have a support group, a mentor, a coach, an accountability partner, someone to help you implement these things? Because remember, it's not what you know, It's what you're applying. It's what you're doing. And that's the key on this one right here. Do I see myself as the type of person who embodies what I'm learning? Am I surrounding myself with people who reinforce my growth? Do I reinforce my new behaviors with my identity shift? So here you could say, I try to be disciplined, or do you say, I am a disciplined person? It's super critical that you take on that new identity. Like when I talked about earlier, the and versus or, I really have taken that on. And when I see something and I'm reading it and I think, oh, here's the choice, I think, no, how can I do both? I really embodied that and. So in here, what you want to do is say, am I really embodying this or not? If you're watching this video, you have probably bought a book, watched some YouTube videos, signed up for a workshop. You've done something, but you also probably haven't had the success that you wanted. And just know that you have to be ready to act, ready to implement. It's not enough just to read it. That's just not going to cut it. You have to actually absorb it, become it, and have it be part of your daily practice. So what things have you already learned right now prior to this video, or maybe even in this video, but you haven't applied it yet? Ask yourself, why haven't I applied it? What's the resistance stopping me? What can I do that would get me over that hump? Do I need an accountability partner? Do I need to sign up and have me coach you? I mean, what is it that you're going to need so that you can take this from a theoretical information side to an application, implementing it, and becoming it? Because that's really the key. Like, if you wanted to be a star football player, you could never do that if your whole life you stayed in the stands. You have to actually get on the field and throw the football, get hit sometimes, have some great plays, but you got to actually get in there and do it. So if you are like, yeah, I want to actually do this, I want to have the change that I want, I don't want to just keep going on this pattern of studying, learning, but not implementing it. Studying, learning, not implementing it. I want to study some stuff, I want to implement them, and I want to reach my goal. If you want to do that, send me an email at optimizers.unlimited@gmail.com and let's have a conversation. Let's figure out how can I help you implement the goals and the things that you want to achieve better. Because there's obviously something stopping you, and sometimes you need an outside person to help you get over the hump and get that. I know for myself, I've hired coaches, I've gone to masterminds, I've done things like that, and they really do help you get over the hump if it helps you implement them, if it helps you become that and embody that, if it gets you to do the things that you know you can do. But if you are still resisting and you're not able to do that, you need to find a way through someone like myself or another way, but you need to find a way to actually get yourself to apply this and become it. I look forward to you emailing me or seeing you in the next video. All the best to you.